Hello everyone, and welcome back to Behind the Bulletin, where we uncover the stories behind the stars and reveal the journeys the spotlight often hides. Today, we're diving into a truly remarkable tale, one that has captured the nation's admiration and redefined what it means to be a modern Korean entertainer. Reinventing Stardom, Lee Jun-ho's journey to becoming Korea's most respected talent. How did he rise? What shaped his transformation? And what secret strength pushed him from idol stage to acting legend? Stay with us, because this story is one you won't want to miss. Let's begin, now. Long before Lee Jun-ho became a name spoken with reverence across Korea. Long before critics bowed to his every performance and audiences held their breath at even the smallest shift in his expression. There was a time when he stood quietly in the shadows, overlooked, underestimated, and fighting a battle no one else could see. The world didn't know it yet, but a transformation was brewing beneath the surface. A reinvention so subtle yet powerful it would eventually reshape the very idea of Korean stardom. It began in the most unexpected way: silence. Scandal, not overnight viral fame. Not explosive controversy, just an unnerving, persistent silence. For months, fans whispered about his disappearance from the spotlight. He wasn't posting. He wasn't performing. He wasn't making headlines. The idol who once commanded stadiums seemed to vanish into thin air. Rumors spread like wildfire. Some claimed he was injured. Others said he was preparing for something massive. But a darker theory gripped the fandom, that Jun-ho had been pushed aside, overshadowed by newer, flashier talents. Yet far from the cameras and public pressure, he was undergoing a transformation almost unimaginable. Those close to him described seeing a different Jun-ho, quieter but sharper. Tired yet burning with intensity. They were preparing for a battle only he understood. He wasn't disappearing, he was reconstructing himself piece by piece. When he finally reappeared, everything shifted. His first audition for a drama role wasn't meant to be memorable. Industry insiders expected him to fail. Another idol trying to act, they whispered. They doubted him. Every glance, every sigh, every forced smile told him so. When he stepped in front of the camera, something in the room changed. His eyes held a depth no one had expected. His voice trembled with raw, unfiltered emotion. And when the scene ended, the casting director reportedly sat frozen, unable to speak for several seconds. No one knew it yet, but that moment marked the rebirth of Lee Jun-ho. As filming began, he pushed himself into a place few actors dared to go. He slept as little as 3 hours a night, memorizing scripts until dawn, practicing scenes alone in empty hallways, rewriting emotions until they felt carved out of his own bones. Staff members whispered about catching him rehearsing in the dark stairwells of the studio, completely immersed, sweating, trembling, refusing to break character even when they called his name. In the first broadcast, nothing could have prepared the world for what they saw. Gone was the charming idol boy with a polished smile. In his place stood a man with weathered eyes, fragile edges, and a storm inside him that demanded to be felt. Viewers were stunned. Critics were silent at first, too shocked to react. But by the second episode, articles exploded everywhere. Where did this acting come from? Lee Jun-ho is no longer an idol, he's a force. Korea just gained a new leading actor. Suddenly the industry was scrambling. Directors fighting to cast him. Producers demanding meetings. Networks begging him to headline the projects. Veteran actors admitted privately that there was something frighteningly powerful about him, an intensity that couldn't be taught. But the rise was not smooth. With fame came the truth: success doesn't bring peace. There's pressure, rumors, political battles behind the scenes, and a spotlight bright enough to burn. People dug into his past, questioning his loyalty, his relationships, even his talent. Some accused him of being too perfect, claiming no idol could reinvent himself so completely without help. Others whispered about rivals trying to block him behind closed doors. Yet Jun-ho said nothing. He simply worked, and each performance hit harder than the last. Fans began to notice the small things: the way he prepared for emotionally brutal scenes by isolating himself, the trembling in his hands after filming. He often left sets looking completely emptied out, as though pouring everything into his characters left him hollow. But he kept going, pushing himself deeper into roles more demanding, more dangerous, more emotionally explosive. Each project, Korea watched him evolve, not loudly, not dramatically, but with a kind of relentless determination that felt almost terrifying. He wasn't just acting. Reinventing what an idol-turned-actor could be. The world was finally beginning to understand the magnitude of his transformation. But the true turning point, the moment that cemented him as Korea's most respected talent, hadn't happened yet. That moment was still waiting. Likely building like a storm ready to break. The night everything changed was supposed to be ordinary. A simple awards ceremony. Another red carpet. Another round of polite applause. But as soon as Lee Jun-ho stepped onto the stage, something felt different in the air, thick, electric, almost dangerous. The audience sensed it before they even understood it. He was nominated for an award many believe he wouldn't win. The petition was fierce. Stacked with veteran actors and industry favorites. Analysts predicted he'd walk away empty-handed. But fans felt something else, an undercurrent. A tension humming through the room like a warning. When the presenter opened the envelope, time seemed to slow. Pause. A breath. A heartbeat. Winner. Lee Jun-ho. Gasps and screams collided at once. Fans erupted. Cameras flashed violently. The entire hall shook with disbelief and adrenaline. Jun-ho didn't move at first, his eyes widened slightly, as though absorbing the shock like a blow to the chest. Then, slowly, he stood. Every step he took toward the stage felt like a story unfolding in real time. His past struggles, silence, the exhaustion, the nights spent alone, all of it followed him up the stairs. But when he gripped a microphone, no one expected what came next. He didn't smile politely. He didn't bow mechanically. He didn't recite generic gratitude. Instead, his voice trembled with an unfiltered honesty that cut straight into the hearts of everyone watching. "I was afraid," he began. "Afraid I wasn't enough. Afraid I didn't belong in this world. Afraid of disappointing the people who believed in me." The audience froze, completely still. Jun-ho continued, voice cracking. "But something changed. I realized that being perfect wasn't the goal. Being truthful was. And standing here means, maybe I finally did something right." Hush swept through the hall. Then he added the words that sent the entire country into emotional chaos. "I gave everything I had. And at times, he broke me." His confession shattered the polished surface of stardom. For the first time, fans saw the truth. His rise wasn't magic, it was pain, sacrifice, desperation, and grit. He wasn't reinventing stardom by accident. He was rebuilding himself from the inside out. As the applause thundered through the venue, expression shifted, not joy, not pride, but something heavier. Relief. Pure, overwhelming relief. The kind that comes from surviving a journey that no one else truly understood. But the night wasn't over. Backstage, cameras caught something unexpected. Jun-ho leaning against the wall, hands shaking, tears slipping down his face as he struggled to steady his breath. Staff rushed to help, but he waved them away gently. "Okay," he said. "I just finally made it." The clip leaked. The internet exploded. People cried. People apologized for doubting him. People declared him a national treasure. From that moment on, everything changed. Offers flooded in. It followed him everywhere. Even harsh critics admitted defeat. Lee Jun-ho was no longer an idol trying to act. He was Korea's most respected talent, a man who rebuilt himself with discipline, courage, and emotion so raw it shook the country. Quietly, without ever demanding attention. He had rewritten what it meant to be a star. Not with noise. Not with scandal. But with truth. The rise of Lee Jun-ho wasn't loud. It wasn't flashy. It wasn't easy. It was powerful. It was human. It was unforgettable. A reinvention so complete, so breathtaking, that it forever changed the landscape of Korean entertainment, and left a story the world would remember for decades to come. In the weeks following his unforgettable award speech, the entire nation found itself unable to look away from Lee Jun-ho. What had once been admiration turned into fascination. And what began as fascination became something deeper, respect, almost reverence. Yet, behind the scenes, a storm was brewing. One that would push him even further than anyone could imagine. History reacted quickly. Directors who once dismissed him suddenly vied for his attention. Some sent handwritten letters begging him to consider their projects, others camped outside agencies, refusing to leave without securing a meeting. But Jun-ho didn't rush. He read every script quietly, alone. Often until sunrise. studying each line as if searching for something only he could understand. Staff members noticed something unusual. The more praise he received, the quieter he became. Carrying the weight of expectations on shoulders that had already borne too much? Then came the script that changed everything, a psychological thriller centered around a character so shattered, so emotionally demanding. Several actors had already turned it down. When Jun-ho finished reading it, he didn't hesitate. He requested the role immediately. His agency panicked. They warned him it was dangerous. Too intense, too destructive. But Jun-ho simply replied, "I need to see how far I can go." Filming began in winter, under icy winds that sliced through studio walls. On the very first day, the director watched Jun-ho perform a scene so harrowing, so brutally raw, that the entire crew fell silent. No one spoke until the director whispered, "Cut." Most afraid to break the tension, Jun-ho stood still for several seconds, his breath shaky. Eyes glazed over as though he hadn't fully returned from whatever emotional cliff he had hurled himself off. Rumors spread instantly. Crew members described seeing him wandering the set late at night, rehearsing alone in pitch darkness, repeating lines with an intensity that frightened even seasoned staff. Some said they heard him crying behind closed doors. Claimed he locked himself in a practice room for hours, emerging only when his voice had grown hoarse and his eyes swollen. But the performance that shocked everyone came 3 weeks later. It was a pivotal scene, one requiring Jun-ho to experience total emotional breakdown. Script called for tears, pain, a complete collapse. What happened went far beyond acting. As the camera rolled, Jun-ho's body shook, his voice cracked. Lines spilled out of him like a confession carved from his bones. At one point, he fell to his knees, gasping uncontrollably, and the director realized he wasn't acting anymore. When the scene ended, they didn't clap. They couldn't. The air was too heavy, too real. A staff member quietly placed a blanket around him as he trembled on the floor. Eyes distant. Someone whispered, "Hurting himself for this." Another whispered, "Or he's finally showing us the truth." News of his intense method acting leaked, sending the public into chaos. Fans were torn between pride and fear. Articles exploded online. Is Lee Jun-ho pushing himself too far? Genius or danger? The cost of perfection. Is Jun-ho risking everything for this role? Pressure mounted. Agencies, reporters, even senior actors urged him to slow down, to protect himself. But Jun-ho simply smiled, the kind of tired smile that reveals more pain than comfort, and said, "This is what I was meant to do." When filming wrapped, the director hugged him tightly and whispered, "You didn't just act. You lived it." Jun-ho nodded but said nothing. First time in months, he allowed himself to breathe. But the true explosion came on the night the drama premiered. The opening scene aired. Social media erupted instantly. Viewers couldn't believe what they were seeing. His acting was beyond extraordinary. It was startling, immersive, haunting. People wrote that they felt chills, their hands trembling, their hearts racing uncontrollably. Some had to pause the episode just to breathe. The halfway point, the internet was in meltdown. By the ending, the entire nation was speechless. Dawn, Jun-ho's name dominated every search ranking. He didn't just deliver a performance. He delivered a phenomenon. Critics released emergency reviews at 2 a.m., praising him as a once-in-a-generation talent. National streaming platforms pushed his drama to their front pages. Overseas fans discovered him overnight, declaring him Korea's next global legend. Yet amid all the praise, Jun-ho remained quiet, almost withdrawn. Those close to him said he still carried something heavy inside, some part of the role that hadn't fully left him. But then something happened no one expected. Jun-ho appeared in a live broadcast. There was no glamour, no stylist, no scripted lines. Just him, tired, emotional, human. He looked into the camera with eyes still holding remnants of pain and said softly, "Thank you for seeing me." Voice trembled. Millions of viewers did too. Single moment became iconic, shared, played, and cherished. Because in that instant, people finally understood, Lee Jun-ho hadn't risen through scandal, manipulation, or luck. He rose through heartbreak, sacrifice, relentless pursuit of truth. He didn't reinvent stardom by changing the world's standards. He reinvented it by changing himself. From overlooked idol to respected actor. National treasure. The journey was brutal and unforgettable, and his fans watched him quietly bow his head in gratitude. One truth echoed across Korea. Lee Jun-ho didn't become respected. He earned it. In the end, Lee Jun-ho's journey was never about fame, applause, perfect headlines. It was about endurance. It was about rebuilding himself each time the world doubted him. About pushing his limits without expecting recognition. About choosing honesty over comfort and truth over perfection. As he stood before the fans who had watched every step of his transformation, he finally understood that everything he had endured, the silence, the setbacks, the pain, had led him here. Not to an award. Not to a title. To a moment of genuine connection. He looked out at the countless faces cheering for him. Faces trembling with pride. And let out a quiet breath, one that seemed to release years of pressure all at once. With a soft smile, he lifted the microphone and spoke from somewhere deep within his heart. Thank you, truly. Thank you for believing in me when I couldn't believe in myself. Thank you for waiting for me, supporting me, and seeing me, not as an idol or an actor, but as a person trying his best. I promise I will continue growing, for you. And I will never forget this journey we walked together. All erupted in applause. But for a brief moment, everything felt still, just him and the people who had carried him through every storm. It was not the end of his story, but the beginning of a new chapter built on trust, sincerity, and unshakable respect. And as the lights dimmed, truth remained unshakable. Lee Jun-ho didn't just reinvent stardom. He reminded the world what true artistry looks like. That is honest, fearless, and unforgettable.